I had parents who adored one another and adored their children. I'm the eldest of 8 children. I learned to be mother quite young. Helped a lot around the house. Learned to do things at a very young age. The laundry, the cooking, the ironing. Oh, permapress is the best thing ever. I remember ironing my dad's. He was on the high council and on the school board, and he'd wear French cuff shirts. Ironing white French cuff shirts is a pain. So I'm grateful for permanent press. And I was born in Tremont, Utah. My dad was in partners with his father and brothers on dry farms in northern Utah, the Blue Creek, Howell, little Pocatello Valley area, Council Valley. At the time I came along, they were living in Tremont, and they weren't out on the farm anymore and just went out there to work. Occasionally, my mother would take the kids out, like during harvest and planting. We'd all go out there. I have memories of that. And I have to tell you this, my mother was from Germany, a city girl. And my dad brought her out to this western farming, ranching experience, and that was a terrific adjustment for her to do that. He had met her on his mission, came back, they corresponded. He went back and got her. His dad went with him, and she was one of the very last people to get out of Germany before World War II. They almost weren't able to get her out, to bring her back here. I was the firstborn, a year after they were married, and my dad was still working with his dad. And we spent time out there on that dry farm in Blue Creek. And I came along just when they were beginning to have tractors. They had done all that farming with huge horse teams. And that's an important part of my story. My grandparents wanted him to go on a mission, and he said, no, you need me worse here on the farm. I'm the oldest son, you've got to have me here on the farm. And he was out drilling one day with his dad, drilling grain. They were each on a drill, horse-drawn. And my grandfather said to my dad, Hiram, get off the drill. And he said, why? We're almost done. We've got to keep going and get this done. And Grandpa said, get off the drill. And my dad got off, and they no sooner, and got away from the horses and the machinery, and lightning struck. Killed one of the horses, kind of paralyzed another one. And if my dad had been sitting there on that drill, it was very likely he could have been killed. Well, it took him, I think, maybe a couple days, and he came to his parents and said, I'll go on a mission. He considered that a miracle, and so he got his mission called to Brazil, and that just upset my grandmother no end. This is what she said. The authorities can send their sons to Brazil. My son's going to Germany. We still have family there, and they need to hear the gospel. And I don't know how this all transpired, but he ended up going to Germany. And it was like almost a 3-year mission call. He was there almost 3 years. And that's where he met my mother in the course of that mission. Her father was branch president, and they were one of the few member families there. And he came back to Utah, and they corresponded. And he and my grandfather went back to Germany and got her. And she was married. They were married to city offices in Germany. She couldn't leave the country unless she was married to an American citizen. That was one of the ways. They were thinking to bring her back and then be married in the temple. Well, the city offices were at an old castle in the town where she lived, and so that's where they were married, in that castle. And they were married on the 14th of April, came back across the Atlantic Ocean on the same ship my father was on 4 times. And on the 24th of May, we're sealed in the Salt Lake Temple. And we kind of call that our family temple, because that's where Jerry's parents were married also, and that's where we were married. So we lived in a tiny little house that didn't have indoor plumbing. It had running cold water. And the men were out on the dry farm a good deal of the time. And then my parents bought a little place of their own and had milk cows and chickens. And this is always something that amazes the family. My mother was just a city girl, knew nothing of farm life. My dad would go off to the dry farm, and there were cows to be milked and chickens to be tended, and my city-born little mother did all of that with the kids and my dad out at the dry farm. And we lived at that house out on Iowa String in Tremont.